abide by the rules of the International Deaf Cafe. And so one of them is you have to offer snacks. Which I'm like, well, I am not, I mean, I am all about bribing people with food. So
Yeah, it worked for me.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to do it otherwise. Why would, like, you want people to be at ease?
Sure.
And one way to do that is to have snacks, right? So yes, come to the Deaf Cafe. We have cookies.
It's open all the time or just
Well, it's not a one specific place, right? So it's right now, my Death Cafe is the second Tuesday of the month in Gahanna, in the Gahanna Library in the evening. My friend Nikki, the Death Doula, she has two cafes. Wow, this is going to go great. One on the first Sunday of the month in Worthington, in the Worthington Cohatch. And she also has a one on Zoom. So then I guess you would have to bring your own snacks to the Zoom one. But there's actually a deafcafe.com where you can plug in your zip code and see anything that's going on. It's international. So you can see any Deaf Cafe all over the world.
wow.
It started in England, the Deaf Cafe, and then in the United States, it actually started here in Columbus. A lady named Lizzie Miles found out about what was going on in England, liked it so much, brought it over here. And actually, so my first Death Cafe was in January. Lizzie came to it.
Oh, wow.
No pressure. Pressure at all. But I didn't know she was coming. I had been talking to somebody at the Facebook Columbus Death Cafe. I've been talking to somebody and trying to get, some information out there in the Facebook land. And so we've been messaging back and forth. Nobody had told me who they were. And then somebody just showed up at my January cafe and said her name was Lizzie. And I'm like, hey, Lizzie? Okay. Awesome. She's super nice. She sent me a postcard later and was really gracious. And so apparently I did something right. So yeah. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad that everybody's here. Thank you for taking the time to come and learn about death. So it's not an easy subject to talk about sometimes, right? I mean, I'm one of the weird ones who's like, sweet, let's talk about it. A lot of times, most people don't want to. It gets awkward. I mean, I don't know if just from coming here, if I say, yeah, we're going to talk about death, what pops into your head right now? Just
make the most of the moment.
Yes, make the most of the moment. Any other thoughts?
We are all going to do it.
That is correct. We are all going to do it.
How expensive it is.
Yes, it is expensive.
I just think people that think this it's just like a downer topic. It's often just kind of feels like, there's enough hard stuff going on. Why would we talk about something that's hard?
Right. That has a way of being a party pooper. I don't know if anybody saw the Barbie movie, but there's an excellent scene at the very beginning of it, kind of, where everybody's dancing and they're so happy and they're just everybody's just so happy and dancing and it's a great thing. And then Barbie actually says, and I think about death. And then it's like record scratch.
Yeah.
And everybody's just like, what? Because they live in the land of Barbie, land of toys. Nobody ages, nobody dies. It's just, that's not what happens. You never think about Barbie dying. And she's like, oh, I mean, just kidding, and then everybody goes back to the being happy and things. Americans are really, really good at living comfortable lives. We can ignore things that we don't like until we absolutely have to be faced with it. We are really good at, oh, I don't like it. There's a chair over here and some stools too.
Oh,
If it makes us uncomfortable, a lot of the times we don't have to be faced with it if we don't want to until we're absolutely faced with it. And so there's no other option. And as a culture, we don't even like aging. We don't even, we don't want gray, like all the advertisements. You want to get rid of your grays. You don't want to see wrinkles. Get rid of the stretch marks and whatever, right? We don't want to think about aging. We don't want to think about death. And guess what? It's coming for all of us. Not even Jesus was immune. Right. And I can say that because we're all the members of the Jesus fan club here. If I had a different audience, I wouldn't bring him into it. But yeah, like we don't want to talk about it. And the difference is 100 years ago, our life expectancy was in the mid-40s. And so a lot of people were used to having death as a part of everyday life. And it happened more often. You didn't go to the hospital. You had it more in your house, and people would come to your parlor and pay their respects. And it was more of a community thing. It was more of a thing that was done and how the family took care of the body. There was all of these things that we have lost, like those traditions and things, because we have turned death from a human thing into a medical thing. And don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of medical, like science and the prolonging of our life expectancy. That's wonderful. But now, since our life expectancy is in the 70s and 80s, it's not as frequent. And so we don't have as much experience with it as we used to. And when we do have experience, we have to go to the hospital, and there's weird smells and there's weird sounds, and it's scary. And instead of being a natural thing that we all will experience, now it's a very foreign thing. That there's even more of a barrier there, because I don't like those tubes. I don't like that sound. And particularly for me, I hate the smell of rubbing alcohol because it always means, listen, you're going to get poked somewhere. I don't like it. So why would I subject myself to go there and watch that? So if I don't have to, I don't want to, right? So we ignore it. But what has happened then is when you finally have to face that fact, you're not prepared. And then chaos happens, stress happens, anxiety happens, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we're supposed to do. And that's not okay by me. It's not. I don't want to be like, death is going to be sad, and we shouldn't take away the sad, because that's evidence of having loved, right? The mourning, that's good, and it's evidence that you've loved and you've made a difference in somebody's life. But the anxiety and the stress, that doesn't have to be there, not at all. So when I heard the term death doula, and I did a little bit of research, and I took like a class, like a free seminar on what it meant to be there. And this lady was talking, and it just fireworks off in my head. Yes, yes, yes. This is what we need. We need more education about this, because it's just not, we don't hear it enough, and we don't talk about it enough. It shouldn't be taboo. What these things that we're talking about, you should be able to have a conversation about. So what kind of burial are you planning? Right? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be aqua creation? Do you want, like all these things? It shouldn't be like, ooh, it should be, oh, that's interesting. Oh, tell me more about that. Right? Because it's no secret. We're all going to die at some point. So what is a doula exactly? A doula is a non-medically trained professional that provides guidance and service and support through a significant health-related experience. So most commonly, you probably have heard doula associated with a birth, And so in that instance, although I don't have a lot of experience with birth doulas, but it was not a midwife. A midwife is a medically trained person that's actually going to catch the kid, right? But the birth doula is going to help the family prepare for the arrival of the child. They may go around the house and say, how many outlet covers do you need? Are we going to learn how to put diapers on? Are we going to learn how to put the car seat in? Like all of these ancillary things that don't have to do with the medical part of it, right? Death doulas are the same kind of thing. Birth doulas help you come in. Death doulas help you go out. There's still that transition. So as a death doula, we're going to look at, okay, you have a terminal diagnosis. What is your prognosis? How long have you, as a doctor, given you? And that's going to kind of give us an estimate of how fast we need to work and what kind of things we need to work with. Hospice can only start to help you when you have 6 months or less to live. I don't have that timeline. If you're given like 2 years, sweet, we can work right now. We can start. We don't even, I don't bet, also the good thing is you don't have to have a terminal diagnosis to work with me. If you just want to start planning for your death, we can do, like like an advanced care consultation kind of thing where we just start planning. Because the most important thing to do is to have your advance directives. And anybody over the age of 18 can have an advance directive. I have some copies. I only have 16 copies, but I have some here if you'd like to take them home. And I also have some pages of some websites here, one of which is the advance directive website, which I got this from, so you could actually go to the website and print it out yourself.
Do you need more copies of that second one you have in your hand just so everybody can have one?
This?
Yeah.
Sure, and we can pass it out. I think I have 30 copies of this, so we can at least pass around some, if you like. So your advance directive is 2 things. The first thing is your healthcare power of attorney, also known as a healthcare proxy. This is someone, now when you talk to anybody or like a lawyer or even look at the website, it's going to say that this is a person who makes decisions when you can't, make decisions for you when you are not able to. You are in a temporary unconscious state. The temporary is important. Okay. So you've been in an accident, something like that, and you need medical decisions made and you can't make them for yourself. I take issue with the thing that it says they make decisions for you. That is true. They speak on your behalf. But if you've done your homework and if you've actually written all of your wishes down, this person is not making decisions for you. They are simply speaking your wishes. A lot of people will shy away from, I don't want to be a healthcare power of attorney because I don't want that kind of pressure. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm getting stressed just thinking about it? Well, first of all, if that person's that stressed, you probably shouldn't make them. You have your life journey. But fine. If you've done your legwork ahead of time, there should not be a lot of heavy lifting involved because they should have it written down. They should be able to go through here and say, well, okay, she said that if in this instance that it's temporary and it looks like she does want artificial nutrition in this instance. Yes, please give her artificial nutrition, right? That kind of thing. So it should not be that big of a deal. They're not making a decision for you. They're simply carrying out your wishes. So that's your healthcare power of attorney. It's the majority of this packet. Actually, the majority of this packet this is why it's so great. It's questions and answers and instructions on what this actually is. It's not just the packet. It's not just the legal forms itself. That's why I like it from this Leading Age Ohio website. It's really, really good. So that's the first thing is your healthcare power of attorney. And again, it kicks in when you are temporarily not able to make your own decisions. The second part of that advance directive is your living will. And that kicks in when you are permanently unable to make your own decision. Like you are, and you have a terminal illness, or you are permanently in a vegetative state and cannot make your own decisions. So when the terminal illness thing kicks in, it says, here are my wishes, because I know I have a terminal illness. And here's what I want you to do if I stop breathing. Here's what I want you to do if my heart stops. So these are so very important, because it will stop a lot of, again, drama, a lot of confusion. Because what do you do if your first inclination, oh my gosh, your heart stopped? What do we do? Well, by law, medical people have to resuscitate you unless they are told not to. That's the law. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what diagnosis you have. If they don't know any of that unless they're told. Right? So you could be, there's the example that was given in one of my trainings was a very frail woman, like in her 90s, was frankly just wasting away from some illness and in the ICU, and she coded. So she did not have a do not resuscitate order yet. The law says that somebody was going to have to go in there and give her CPR. But the person that was talking actually went against the law, because they knew that if they gave her CPR, all of her ribs would break and it would puncture her lungs. And it would cause way more damage than if they just let her go and die naturally. But that's a really complicated situation to be in, because they actually broke the law, even though they did better for the patient. If you put your do not resuscitate orders in here, and actually also have that conversation with the doctor once you get in there, so that you have a big do not resuscitate order on your wrist, then you don't have to worry about those kinds of things. So, and that's a lot of information to go through all at once. This is not meant to be like an all of exhaustive thing, but those are just the kind of things that we talk about when you hire a doula. We go through all of those things.
Just a quick question about that. It's one thing when you know, like you've got this terminal illness and you're coming in because there's a problem, the health. But there are times people come in and something wacky goes wrong. You're healthy when you come in and you have these doctors. Do they ask if you have this information? Is there, you know what I'm saying? Like if I came in just I'm healthy as a lark and something weird happens and suddenly they're faced with a situation that involves an end of life decision for me. I didn't come in saying anything because it was.
You didn't hand them your power of attorney when you showed up.
They should ask a way, like, hopefully someone's there with me to say, hey, I got this info, but I'm just curious.
They should ask you when you come in, do you have a living will? Do you have? That's the first question they
always ask me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't think to say that if I was just coming in for something that was just.
Yeah, they will ask you, do you have an advance directive? Now, the interesting part of that is it's not actually legally binding.
The living will is not?
The living will is, the advance directive is not. The healthcare power of attorney is not in certain circumstances. Like when I went in for my colonoscopy, they asked me if I had an advance directive, and I was like, oh yes, I do, but I forgot to bring it. I didn't even think about it because it's just a routine. I really hope you don't perforate my colon today. Please don't kill me. And they said, that's okay. We wouldn't go by it anyway. They flat told me that. And I was like, excuse me? Because their whole point was, we're going to do everything we can to save your life, because the risk is so minimal at this point. Like if something did go bad, like we're going to do everything we can. There are, in the majority of the cases, yes, your wishes will be honored. However, if something you want goes against the conscience of the doctor, they don't have to do it. They do have to allow you to be referred to someone else that will. So when I first read that, I was like, wait a minute, this can't be right. But it is. And even in this packet, they'll say the doctors must do what you say. No, they won't. They don't have to. They usually do. But just know that they don't have to. But yes, they will ask. Everybody should ask the first thing, do you have an advance directive? So the people that you put as your healthcare power of attorney, you can put more than one. You can put, your primary and then like a secondary. They should have a copy of your paperwork so that if they get a call, they will be able to march right down to the hospital and have it handy. If you're going in for a surgery, like when I went in for my hysterectomy, I had this right here. Here you go. Put it in my file, just in case. I did not anticipate anything would go wrong, but you just never know. Right. Bill.
Tom was first.
Oh.
Well, you were talking about the difference between temporary incapacitation and it's going to be permanent.
Yep.
Couldn't the healthcare power of attorney cover both you and us? When we went to write our wills a couple of years ago, our lawyer told us, okay, we said we had both. She said, get rid of the living will. It's because remember this guy, Dr. William Husel? He was accused of killing 18 elderly patients. He said, you don't want somebody like Husel making this decision for you. So she said, get rid. So we shredded our living wills and we just got the healthcare power of attorney. It seemed supposed to take care of things.
Okay.
If I may.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I certainly wouldn't go against legal advice. So, if your lawyer told you to do that, then, and if you're comfortable with that, then certainly go with what your lawyer says. I'm not a lawyer. I can't give legal advice. I'm not a physician. I can't give medical advice. So, I offer options and then, but always consult with your professional people for, like I would say, take your power of attorney and your living will into your physician and say, if you're confused with, well, what does it do not resuscitate mean? What is, do not intubate mean? What would you do in this situation? Would you actually honor my wishes or do I need to find somebody else that will? You can be that direct with your physician and you should be that direct with your physician, right? Because you are your own advocate. And then when you're picking out somebody to be your healthcare power of attorney, they should be that strong too, because they are going to be your advocate. Like my dad called me a few months ago and asked me to be his healthcare power of attorney. And I said, of course. He said, I figured you would because you'd never had a problem standing up to me. And I was like, thanks. Thanks for that. But it's true. Like, I am not going to take BS from anybody, especially if it's from my left. Like, no. And I've had to, that's been a hard lesson for me to learn from my own healthcare advocacy. Like, I've had to stand up to a lot of people, especially over these last few months when things didn't go quite so right. But yeah, no, if you have questions, you need answers. And we're going to continue to get answers. And that's another thing that I can help with. Sometimes you just want somebody else there. Like if you've got doctor's appointments and they're scary and they're saying stuff that you don't quite understand. And it's just like, it turns into Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. I can go with you. I can go with you and start writing it down and recording stuff so that we can have a debrief later. Right? Because I am not as, I'm a third party. I'm not as directly involved in all of that, right? I can also go with you for your funeral arrangements to be an advocate, right? Because you're in the middle of all this stuff and maybe somebody just died and you're trying to figure it all out and you don't want to get I'm not saying all funerals directors do this. They certainly don't. There's some really good ones, but there are some people that may take advantage of your, of your situation, of your vulnerable state. Again, my dad said when he went to take care of my grandfather's arrangements, my grandfather had already made arrangements, and they were just taking care of the rest. And he tried to get up, like the guy tried to upsell him. Well, you need like the extra thick whatever, and the gold plated this, and well, first of all, because why? Well, you don't want the creepy crawlers coming in. You don't want. My grandfather's buried in a mausoleum above ground. Also, when my dad told him this, also, decomposition happens from the inside out. Creepy crawlers have nothing to do with it. And so, I guess that guy got what for that day, at which I could have been there. So yeah, so if you want somebody to have a better of a level head, just like we know we need certain things. We don't need all the special things. We don't need the one with the ceiling fan, mother. You know what? Put it in advance directive. I'll try to figure out the way to make it work. But yeah, you had a question.
Yeah, okay, just an example. I use myself as an example. I had a little will made over my doctor, she's asked me all these questions and everything. She says, suppose you fell out in the middle of the floor, and would you want me to revive you? I told her no, for what? I can't, I don't want to be laid around on my family. I don't want my family to have to suffer. Or nobody trying to take care of me, or whatever, I told them, no, it's in my living will, and it's my brother and my sister-in-law. They are the ones that speak for me, and I already told them what I want them to do.
Good. Well done, you.
It's
Yes.
it's in my file.
Yes.
I don't want to be no burden on my family. And that's just I hear a lot of people do, but I can't see for the life of me.
And you've done more than what I think like 70% of people have done. Like 85-90% of people think, oh, this is such a great idea. And only like 30% of people do it. So you've got a good start you're ahead of the game. So well done.
I just can't see, but I've heard a lot of people, well, I don't want this, I don't want that. Look, you're going to be a burden on yourself, your family, I put them through that. I can't stand up, I can't sit up, I can't beat myself. What am I? Take care of me.
And Bill had a question, and then there's one online as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
With and I both have DNR orders, and our geriatric doctor signed them and made copies, stored them in our refrigerator,
Yes.
so that when the ambulance is called, we can hand it to them.
Mhm.
Well, when you're in a situation where you need to call an ambulance, is that the first thing you think about? Not us. So happens within the city limits of Columbus, and the 3 ambulance calls I can recall recently, no one has ever asked us if we have a DNR. And you mentioned there's a DNR bracelet. Is that legal? You got a doctor's signature on it, and where do you get it?
Well, my grandmother had one when she was in the hospital. So they had a conversation when she was admitted, and then she put that on there. So the DNR order is only for a specific time, like when you were in the hospital.
Yes.
I wear a medical alert bracelet because I don't want to be resuscitated if my heart stops. Not that I have any condition, or that's just my decision. I have read in The Art of Dying Well that the only thing across state, no matter where I am, that they look to, and it's in the American Red Cross resuscitation thing, that they're supposed to check you for bracelets. So I wear a medical alert bracelet that says, Julianne DNR arrest, which is the 4 by heart stop, that it is. Yes, you get one if you're in the hospital, but if I'm not in the hospital, this should assure that I am not resistant. That's my wish, and that's the only way that I can, that's the most immediate, likely way that I will not, that my wishes will be followed. I also have the doctor's order at home by my refrigerator, but they're supposed to, and my healthcare power of attorney knows it, my brothers all know of it, I'm taking care of the paperwork. But this is, $25 cost me for medical order. This is what I do to assure.
And it goes with you wherever you want.
I got one that, I can slide up easily on and off my wrist, but there's all kinds of, you can have a necklace, you can have a bracelet, but medical alert is a pretty much across all states recognized.
Yeah, I have one of those too.
And if it includes DNR, you can do that.
Just don't get it tattooed across your chest, because I know that's not legally binding.
Yes.
There was a case that somebody didn't have a do not resuscitate across, like tattooed on them. And it is not legally binding. It probably looks really cool, but it's not legally binding.
Rachel. So- Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. My question is back to designating who is your healthcare power of attorney. Is there an opportunity to put 2 layers of protection? I'm thinking, like, what if, my husband and I are in the car together and we're both terribly injured, and so he wouldn't be able to speak for me, or neither me for him. Would I be able to designate my brother?
Yes. There you can have there's a first agent. Well, I'm looking at the Ohio form, right? So you would have to look at your Arizona form.
Sure.
But I'm sure it's very similar, I would guess, that you have a primary agent and then there's a secondary agent, and you can have a tertiary agent. I feel so smart because I use that word.
You are.
You can add addendums to that. You can add extra pages to this for any number of things. I would guess that if you wanted to have a whole litany of pages for however many agents, you could do that too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to add if you're not married, there are certain limitations after death. If you go to a funeral home, even though you've written out your wishes, they're going to go to your next of kin unless you were. There's an attorney in town who's trying to follow up on this. Funeral homes have come up with a form that has to be signed by next of kin. And I have had 2 friends in the last year or so that died, whose long-term partners, 40 years or more, and they required a family member instead to sign. That's not legal, but if you have, if you have criminal illness and you're making plans, you want to talk to your funeral home about who you want to do that and make sure that they're going to honor it. It's a hell of a thing to go through at the time of death and find out that, no, they do it this way. Because, legally, but who wants to fight a legal battle
At that moment, yeah.
So that's just as a gay person,
Right.
had months to go through that, so.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I want to mention also, as a veteran, I'm eligible to be buried at sea, and that's what we've chosen. But many people didn't know about the availability of that if they are retirees or veterans from the military. And if anybody has a question, see me.
We also looked up there, you have, as a veteran, you could have a free burial plot in a veteran cemetery except Dan and I looked up, Stan's a veteran. We looked up which one is available here around town, and it's at the Confederate Cemetery. Sullivan Avenue. So, yeah, because at first we're like, oh, that's really nice. You get a free plot somewhere, but and you know what? Like, okay,
There's so all burials in that cemetery. Well, I mean, if they're.
as a doula, my first and foremost job is not to judge. Okay, so if you came to me and said, I would like to be buried at this cemetery, the Confederate Cemetery on Sullivan Avenue, I would be like, oh, okay, tell me more. And if you said, you know, well, the view from Sullivan Avenue is just glorious, and I just, you know, whatever.
There is a very twist right next door.
It's convenient. I mean, there could be many, whatever reasons, so that's fine.
So wait, what are you saying, Julie? The relatives go visit the grave and they get ice cream?
Or before they go, because, you know,
Receives thinks that's a great view. That's not very twist the whole lot.
it's not a great view.
I'm just saying, if it was your dream to be buried at the Confederate Cemetery and you are a veteran, that is available to you free of charge, courtesy of the U.S. government. There's a thing you know now. Okay.
And the VA will also give you a free grade marker.
They will.
Which they both have side by side trademarks.
Yes. Yes.
And the different branches of military will do certain honors with your service
Yes.
too.
And you get a flag and all of that. Mhm.
Might even get taps on a fake trumpet.
Yes.
You don't take trumpets at my funeral.
So, Katie, I have a question.
Yes.
Related to support sort of before and after, do you as the doula also help the family afterward? Or
Absolutely.
grief support?
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, because I'm new at this, I don't really have any experience in the after part, but I would imagine that, you know, I will check in and just as a grief support and just say, how are you doing? You know, do you want to talk? Do you want to?
So with that part of your training is understanding what grief is and how to help the family with that, or is that sort of something you would need to learn more on, as far as
Always learning. I'm always learning, right? I don't have any kind of official grief certification. Nikki, the death doula, I put her information there. She does. She actually has a podcast on grief that is really, really good. And I know it's kind of weird, like, why are you advertising another doula in the area? Like, aren't you guys, you know, competing for business or whatever? No, we are not. She's fantastic. She's been doing this longer than I have, and she's a great resource. And we're friends, actually. We're not competing because there's enough death to go around, right? And we're different personalities, right? So it's more of, if you talk to us and you realize which personality best fits for you and what kind of services we offer, like I sing at bedside, she does not. That might be something that's more important to you or something like that. So we work in tandem, and if I need help and she can help me, or if she needs help and I can go help her. So it's more of a partnership kind of thing. We're not competing with each other. But yeah, grief is, I have had to volunteer with Mount Carmel Hospice as part of my training and have a certain number of volunteer hours. And even just getting into that program, I had to interview with them. And the gentleman asked me, you know, what kind of grief have you personally experienced? And of course, you know, grandmothers and grandfathers passing and cousins and things. But I made sure to mention that grief is not just people, it's not just death of a person. It's loss in general. You can grieve a pet that passing. You can also grieve relationships dying,
Divorce.
divorce, and that is the big one for me. And you know, and explaining in vivid detail the kind of grief that I went through my divorce. I probably went into way too much information for this man.
That's great.
But that is grief. That is grief. And he just kind of sat there and he listened and he said, you get it. You get it. And so I think that is the ability to hold space, because you get it is more important than anything else, right? Like, I could read all the books in the world, I can go to all the trainings, I could do all the things, but to know that sometimes you don't have to say anything and you just have to be there, to also know that you're not afraid to say somebody's name after they've passed, because chances are people want to talk about it. You're not going to you're not going to shock somebody by saying their loved one's name. They haven't forgotten. It's foremost in their minds, right? But a lot of people are really weirded out about it. Like, oh, probably shouldn't talk about that person because I don't want to remind them of that sad time. It's there, right? It's never gone away, right? Yes, ma'am.
I'll ask you one more question. I'll let you go for the day.
Okay.
But like a lot of times, a lot of people have cremation. Okay. And just for an example, okay, this is my church. I don't want the members to forget me.
Yeah. How could we ever, ma'am? How could we ever?
If I asked for my ashes to be spread around the church, do I have to pay for that? Or you know what I mean? Because I've heard a lot of people say in order to request for your ashes to be spread at a particular place that they'll charge you that the area, the place where your ashes are being spread, that you will have to pay for that. Is there a fee or just?
Well, you have to pay to be cremated.
Right, cremated.
You have to pay the crematorium for that.
Right, yeah.
But as far as I can't speak for church council, ma'am, I don't know, but she can.
Well, not that I'm on it anymore. We have been in the process for a few years now, and just COVID hit and life happens and blah, blah, blah. It's been kind of a slow process. But we do have a team that's working on putting together a memorial garden. That would be a space for ashes, but also a place for people to come and to reflect and in a quiet space. So a few years tuned to that one. We got a meeting coming up. We're kind of reviving it. We were going for a while and then kind of it's on a hiatus, but we're back at it. So
I just thought I would ask Sister Will. Heard it before. Not that I know of anybody, in situations like that, but I was just wondering. So this is a good time to ask that question.
Will you put me on that team? You need to bring it back up.
I will. Yes, I will absolutely include you.
Okay. I will say, well, people know I will not say that. I cannot legally say that. I might tell you something later. Anyway, yes, ma'am.
Me?
Yes, you.
No, I'm not really saying anything other than a comment or an observation. But it looks to me like Stephen Ministry, hospice, and the death doula are all first cousins. They all have some relationship to each other, but not complete. So you could start with your Stephen Ministry, and it's not really counseling, it's listening. And then the doula has providing the information, and then there's the medical part. And it just seems to me that they're linked together like first cousins. And I've done some hospice training, yes, Stephen Ministry.
I will tell you the hospice training that I had to be as part of Mount Carmel Hospice was actually more in depth than my doula training. I learned way more from Mount Carmel Hospice than I did from doula. And I'm so grateful for it. The stuff that I had to, like the meditations and things that I had to do to be put in the position of a hospice patient and to learn from the empathy from that was invaluable. And like I did a meditation where I actually spoke to death itself, which was jarring, and I had to take about an hour to recover from it. But I had a conversation, and we had to first draw what we saw with our non-dominant hand. We had to draw that, and then we had a conversation where we wrote our questions with our dominant hand, and we wrote the answer with our non-dominant hand. And it was spooky. Now the conversation itself was not. Everything was lovely, and I never felt scared at one moment in time. But the page itself looks spooky because you have my regular writing, and then you have whatever this weird writing is, because I'm not ambidextrous at all. I can tell you, I asked Beth 3 questions. At first, it sounds silly because okay, I'm going to talk to Beth like, hey, I know you're busy. So like, what's your favorite color? Like, whatever. But once you got into this meditation and like really deep down into it, like it was really serious. I asked Death 3 questions. I asked, why are people afraid of you? What do you think the answer was?
I know.
Because it might hurt.
Because it might hurt, because of the unknown. Because people are afraid of what they don't understand or what's unknown. I asked, should people be afraid of you? And the answer was no, that this is just another step on the journey. And the 3rd question I asked was, why was I picked for this work? I'm not going to tell you the answer to that one because it's very personal, but it made a lot of sense to me. I'm also not going to tell you what I saw for death. It was a very striking something, and I know that if I ever saw it in person, I'd be like, hey, how's it going? You hear from me? You hear from just because if you ever happen to do that exercise, I wouldn't want to color your perception of it, because I'm sure that everybody sees something different. But it was amazing. And it was amazing that it wasn't scary at all. It just felt, it was really nice. So, and that was just from a hospice volunteer training. And my doula training didn't tell me anything about that, but it did tell me, stuff about the medical part of it and what to look for when you're actively dying, which I was very appreciative of. I don't know. I got on a tangent. Yes.
Well, just what you just said just kind of triggered for me is there's lots of different aspects of dying, whether it's the the actual person, but also the family, and going through it and having an understanding of what that person is going through, and what then, like I guess you just brought that up, is those signs of those different stages they're going through, but also how to be a supportive loved one as someone is dying. Because I haven't been alongside that much, and like when watching my dad, I think, oh, should I have done it differently? Like what things to do to be supportive, and I think those are great things to learn.
Absolutely.
That's something you offer just to hospice. I know they're usually helpful too.
Right. But hospice can't be there all the time.
Right.
Right. So like when I was a volunteer, doing respite care, right? So I was there so that the caregivers can go take a shower, can go out to breakfast, can just go take a nap, can, whatever. But the son of this person had come in from Florida, and his mom was mostly sleeping. And while we were there and talking, her breathing changed from regular breathing to right, and he flipped out. And because I was there, because he was like, oh my God, we gotta call hospice, what's going on? And because I was there, I was like, okay, we can call hospice for sure. We can let them know that her breathing has changed. But this is not a time to panic, because this is normal. This is a normal part of the body shutting itself down. And she's not close. I mean, she's not like close, but this is a part of it shutting down. So I was able to take him off the ledge, right? Talk him down. And we did call just to let, like, can you please like notate her file, and if somebody needs to come, if they want to, whatever. But I was so glad that I was there for that moment, just to help him. And, because like, hospice does, I think, a really good job of educating, but like this man was out of town and he had just come in. So if he wasn't the primary caregiver, he didn't have that education. So, yeah.
Yeah, you really do need to be careful about who you approach expecting comfort. Some people just aren't geared to help you with that. The last time my mom went in the hospital, it was 8:30 in the morning. I knew my son had just gotten off his night shift. He would be available, and I was a mess because this was like the third time in 2 months that she'd gone. And I thought, there's not one more bounce back in this one. There just can't be. So I called my son because I didn't want to bother my daughter. I thought I'd just call him. Mom, it's a freaking circle of life. She's going to try. Oh, family. He has no fun. That is my time. He is not going to do that. He is not going to be alone. It's pressure. I told him I was on my way to the hospital with her, and about an hour later, I got a text message from him. I thought, well, he would have gone to bed by now. And he said, how's grandma? And I said, well, no change yet. And he said, well, I'm out in the waiting room and I don't see you. I thought, you little twerp. I thought about what he said and thought, perhaps that wasn't the right thing to say. Still to see him. Yeah. And she is proudly wearing her bracelets every time she gets to the hospital. I need my DNR. She's 97.
And she's also proactive. She's rewritten her obituary, like 3 times? And she tells us when we get in. I rewrote my obituary. Do you want to read it? No. I mean, if you want me to proofread it, I guess I will, but I'm willing to wait and be surprised. And I did have a conversation with her. Here's my business card if you guys want to take one, because I'm really proud of it. But she, somehow she missed the whole thing that I was doing, the death doula thing. And so the last time I really sat down and had a conversation with her, and I mentioned it, and she said, wait a minute, what is this? And so I explained, and she said, it's good. It's good that you're doing this. And then she said, I'm ready. I figured you were. And then she said, I just hope that, I go to sleep and I don't wake up. And I think that's really what we all hope for. That's the best case scenario for all of us, right? Is that we go to sleep and we don't wake up. But we don't really have control over that.
I think that most of your work will be before death or after death.
I think most of it is before. I do like to help people, at the bedside, of course, that's a sacred space. And I'm very honored when people ask me to be there. But what really gets me excited is information sessions like this. I've already been scheduled to do an informational, like a workshop at the Illuminate Festival at the end of March. I love doing my death cafes I guess that's after death too, but it can be a mix of things, but just getting people not excited, but comfortable with. I'm excited. You're comfortable. Talking about these things because, the person that I did the training with, she said that the number one fear in the world is death. I wasn't able to find information to corroborate that. But then she also said that actually death is number 2 in the United States and public speaking was number 1. I also wasn't able to find evidence to corroborate that. However, if she's right, here I am publicly speaking about death, right? I choose to interpret that as I am very much then well suited for this work, that I will publicly speak about death and not anytime, any place, right? So if I can get up in front of a whole bunch of people and do this all the time, I want to. Because I want to spark conversations. And I want to be invited into people's homes to have tough conversations. I want you to have people, I want you to bring your families and your friends in and say, this is what I want for my own death. You know, I want you all to be on board so that you're not arguing and complaining or stressed out about when my time comes. I don't want to hear, you know, all this stuff when I'm lying in the bed. All I want is, you know, Bob Marley playing. That's all I want. That's what my cousin had at his vigil, which was hilarious because as he was dying from leukemia and he was hours from death. And you know, some people say, well, your vigil should be very calm and serene and should have like Enya playing and candles and whatever. No, my cousin's room was packed with people. There was a bar set up. Bob Marley was playing. He was in the hospital. Because that's the kind of person he was. And so, you know, that's what you need. You need to know how the person lived so that they can be honored in that same way.
Was he an older person or?
He's just a few years older than me. So he passed away, gosh, I want to say 5 years ago now, maybe.
So how are you?
How am I paid? I am paid on an hourly basis. I don't have my fee schedule set up yet, but it will be a sliding fee schedule based on what you can afford. Unfortunately, I cannot bill through insurance or Medicare and Medicaid because doulas are not recognized like hospices or doctors or nurses or home health aides or things like that. So when you want to work with me, I offer a free consultation just to see what your needs are and how I best could help you. And then, you know, we'll decide on a budget and then offer packages like in a 10-hour increments. So you pay up front for these 10 hours, and then we use those 10 hours however you want, probably in chunks of at least 2 hours at a time, to maximize efficiency and whatnot. And even after someone passes, those hours don't go to waste because they still, you know, we're still working with funeral homes, we're still working with obituary writing, and if you need me to help with probate court, if you know, just want a memorial service later and you want me to coordinate with that kind of thing, I can do all of that. I can help you with all of that. So
Has moved into a full-time job for you, or that's the hope, or?
that is the hope. That is the hope that I can turn this into a full-time gig and tell the bank to stuff it.
Thank you, Emily. So very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other questions? I mean, we've kind of got to our hour, but
You did say that we're all close to or interested in death.
I think so.
So thank you so much. I do have like 16 copies of the advanced directive packet if you're interested in having it. If interesting.